The origin of the Terminids remains one of the most debated topics among scientists and xenobiologists studying the species. One of the prevailing theories is that they are an invasive species that arrived from a distant, hostile environment, adapting to their new surroundings through rapid and highly specialized evolutionary processes. This theory suggests that the Terminid's ability to evolve so quickly and adapt to various ecosystems, such as hostile alien worlds and even human colonies, was a response to their need for survival in a foreign environment. Some even speculate that Terminids were engineered by an advanced, unknown race of beings as biological weapons intended to conquer and consume entire planets, further feeding the idea of their origins being deeply rooted in aggression and relentless expansion. However, there is also the possibility that the Terminids are a native life form, evolved to fit the harsh ecosystems in which they thrive. This perspective suggests that their highly specialized physical traits and swarm mentality developed over millennia of adaptation to combat threats within their homeworld. In either case, the Bile Spitter, as a younger version of the Bile Spewer, represents a key evolutionary stage in the Terminid life cycle, showcasing how these creatures' biology adapts to the needs of the hive. In this context, the Bile Spitter is not just an enemy to be defeated. It is part of a larger ecological system within the Terminid faction, where different creatures fulfill various roles in the swarm, from predators to soldiers, and, as in the case of the Bile Spitter, biological artillery. The Bile Spitter's evolutionary development can be traced to its more formidable relative, the Bile Spewer, which is capable of launching larger, more powerful explosive bile projectiles. The Bile Spitter is a more agile, smaller variant, offering support within Terminid patrols by targeting enemies with slow, damaging attacks from a distance. It appears that this smaller form was designed to provide more tactical flexibility, engaging Helldivers at a distance, while still offering the explosive potential of its more evolved counterparts. The difference between the Bile Spitter and its adult form, the Bile Spewer, likely lies in the size, the strength of its bile attacks, and the explosion radius. This means that the Bile Spitter plays a vital role in gradually weakening and disorienting enemies, setting the stage for other Terminids to close in and finish the fight. In terms of the ecosystem, the Bile Spitter functions as both a parasite and predator. Its method of attack, via spitting corrosive bile at Helldivers, serves as a biological tool for both offensive and defensive purposes. While the Bile Spitter's primary role is offensive, it could also be seen as a parasitic species by its potential to weaken enemies over time, paving the way for larger and more aggressive Terminids to take the final blow. As a member of the Terminid swarm, it also serves as part of a greater predator-prey dynamic within the ecosystem. While Helldivers are the main prey for Terminids, there is a balance of power within the Terminid ranks themselves. Larger, more powerful creatures like the hive guards or brood commanders dominate the food chain, while smaller creatures like the Bile Spitter fulfill their roles as support and auxiliary combatants. Looking ahead, we can predict that Bile Spitters may continue to evolve and specialize even further. In particular, more aggressive or faster variants of the Bile Spitter may emerge, capable of launching bile projectiles from greater distances or with enhanced effects, such as slowing Helldivers at a faster rate, or even causing damage over a longer duration. This would allow them to become a more prominent threat to Helldivers, requiring even more strategy to counter effectively. In conclusion, the Bile Spitter's evolution marks an intriguing development within the Terminid species. Whether it is a result of the Terminid's initial invasive efforts, or a product of an ecosystem-driven evolution, this creature showcases the relentless adaptive strategies of the Terminid hive. It exists as both a small predator and a support unit, providing essential artillery for the larger swarm, demonstrating how these creatures balance biological offense and defense, and acting as another cog in the terrifying Terminid war machine. The Bile Spitter is a fascinating yet terrifying example of Terminid biological engineering, a creature uniquely adapted to function as a mobile artillery unit within the swarm. Unlike the heavily armored chargers or the melee-focused warriors, the Bile Spitter is designed for agility and ranged combat, utilizing its corrosive bile as a primary weapon against Helldivers. Its small, lightweight frame allows it to move rapidly across varied terrain, keeping pace with larger Terminid patrols while maintaining a tactical distance from the enemy. Despite its relatively frail appearance, the Bile Spitter plays a crucial role in swarm tactics, softening enemy defenses before the more physically imposing Terminids move in to finish the assault. Its presence on the battlefield is a clear indication that Terminid evolution favors efficiency over brute strength, developing specialized life forms perfectly suited for their respective roles in the never-ending war against humanity. Physically, the Bile Spitter's body is segmented into 3 primary regions, each serving a distinct function. Its head is compact and sleek, housing an array of sensory organs that allow it to detect enemy movement with remarkable precision. The thorax, the central structure of its body, contains the necessary musculature and neural pathways to support rapid locomotion and bile expulsion. Finally, the abdomen is its most defining feature, an engorged, semi-translucent sac filled with highly corrosive bile, held under immense pressure. This sac is covered in a relatively thin but flexible exoskeletal membrane, allowing the creature to expand and contract its bile reserves as needed. While this anatomical feature makes it highly effective as a biological artillery unit, it also represents a significant vulnerability, as damage to the abdomen can cause catastrophic internal rupture, triggering an explosive chain reaction that can harm both the Bile Spitter and nearby Terminids. The exoskeleton of the Bile Spitter is composed of a chitinous material reinforced with biosilicates, offering a moderate level of protection while maintaining flexibility for rapid movement. Unlike the thick, reinforced carapaces seen in chargers or hive guards, the Bile Spitter's armor prioritizes mobility over durability, making it susceptible to concentrated fire. While small arms fire may struggle to penetrate the dense plating of larger Terminids, even basic weaponry can reliably injure or kill a Bile Spitter, particularly if shots are aimed at the head or abdomen. However, its evasive movement patterns can make it difficult to hit, especially when encountered in groups. The creature's legs are structured for agility, featuring clawed feet that provide excellent grip on uneven surfaces. This enables it to traverse rocky terrain, climb over obstacles, and reposition itself quickly to gain a more advantageous firing angle. Unlike its melee-focused relatives, the Bile Spitter rarely engages in direct combat unless cornered, instead using its superior mobility to maintain distance while launching its bile attacks. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Bile Spitter is its internal bile production system, a complex biological mechanism that allows it to generate and store vast quantities of corrosive fluid. This bile is composed of powerful digestive enzymes, capable of breaking down organic material, while also causing severe chemical burns upon impact. The bile reservoir within its abdomen is connected to an expulsion organ that functions similarly to a pressurized cannon, allowing the Bile Spitter to launch its payload with deadly accuracy. Upon impact, the bile causes lingering damage, eating away at armor and flesh alike, while also slowing the movement of affected targets. If the creature sustains critical damage, the pressurized bile chamber can rupture violently, triggering an explosion that releases a cloud of toxic fluid, harming both Helldivers and fellow Terminids. This self-destructive mechanism serves a dual purpose, as a final act of aggression against enemies and as a means of denying Helldivers safe passage through Terminid-infested zones. The sensory capabilities of the Bile Spitter are finely tuned for tracking and targeting prey, despite its relatively simple nervous system. Its compound eyes allow it to detect movement over a wide field of view, compensating for its otherwise poor visual acuity. Unlike human eyesight, which relies on detailed color perception and depth awareness, the Bile Spitter's vision is optimized for motion detection, making it particularly dangerous in chaotic battlefield scenarios, where multiple targets are moving at once. In addition to its visual capabilities, the Bile Spitter possesses highly sensitive olfactory receptors located near its mandibles, enabling it to detect enemy pheromones, trace wounded prey, and receive chemical signals from other Terminids. While there is no conclusive evidence of telepathic abilities, its ability to coordinate attacks with other Bile Spitters suggests a form of bioelectric or pheromonal communication, allowing multiple individuals to function as a cohesive artillery unit without the need for audible signals. Despite its strengths, the Bile Spitter has several critical weaknesses that can be exploited by skilled Helldivers. Its head is one of its most vulnerable points, as a well-placed shot to the face will cause immediate neural failure, killing the creature instantly. The abdomen, while highly dangerous due to its explosive potential, is also an Achilles heel. Damaging this region can trigger a premature detonation, eliminating the Bile Spitter before it has a chance to launch its attack. The limbs, though essential for movement, are relatively fragile. Severing a leg or forelimb can immobilize the creature, preventing it from escaping or repositioning. Due to these vulnerabilities, precision shooting and controlled fire are the most effective means of neutralizing this threat. While its bile attacks can be devastating if left unchecked, the Bile Spitter itself is relatively fragile, making it an ideal target for high-powered firearms, explosives, or rapid response melee strikes. From an evolutionary standpoint, the Bile Spitter represents a transitional stage within the Terminid hierarchy, an adolescent form of the more dangerous Bile Spewer. This suggests that Terminids undergo distinct growth phases, with some individuals maturing into larger, more specialized forms over time. Unlike purely melee-based Terminids, which rely on sheer numbers and brute force, the Bile Spitter's ability to attack from a distance makes it a unique asset to the swarm, providing fire support while other units engage enemies in direct combat. This evolutionary adaptation mirrors certain real-world insect species, such as bombardier beetles, which have developed internal chemical reactions to generate explosive defensive mechanisms. In the grand scheme of Terminid evolution, the Bile Spitter's role as a ranged combatant highlights the swarm's ability to diversify its offensive capabilities, ensuring that Helldivers are forced to adapt their strategies constantly. Ultimately, the Bile Spitter embodies the ruthless efficiency of Terminid biology, a creature perfectly engineered to disrupt enemy formations and weaken defenses before the final assault. Its agility, ranged attack capabilities, and volatile self-destruction mechanism make it a formidable opponent, despite its individual fragility. While not as physically imposing as a charger or as strategically vital as a brood commander, its ability to disable and disorient enemy forces ensures that it remains a significant threat on the battlefield. For Helldivers, understanding the weaknesses and behavioral patterns of this creature is crucial for survival, as even a single well-placed bile shot can turn the tide of battle. By recognizing its vulnerabilities and adapting countermeasures accordingly, Helldivers can neutralize this threat before it has the chance to unleash its full destructive potential, proving once again that superior tactics and firepower remain humanity's greatest weapons against the Terminid menace. The Bile Spitter is a fascinating yet terrifying example of Terminid evolution, combining biological efficiency with lethal battlefield utility. As an adolescent form of the larger Bile Spewer, it serves as a crucial component of the swarm, acting as a biological artillery unit that weakens enemy forces before larger Terminids move in for the kill. Despite its relatively small size, the Bile Spitter's unique adaptations make it one of the more tactically significant creatures encountered on the battlefield, demonstrating the relentless and highly specialized nature of Terminid bioengineering. This creature's primary method of attack revolves around its ability to project a high-speed glob of corrosive bile at enemy targets. Unlike melee-focused Terminids, such as warriors and chargers, which rely on brute force to overwhelm their prey, the Bile Spitter specializes in ranged combat, allowing it to strike from a distance while avoiding direct engagement. Its bile is not just a simple digestive compound, but a multifunctional weapon designed to incapacitate and weaken targets. Upon impact, the bile immediately slows movement, drastically reducing an enemy's ability to dodge further attacks, while also inflicting lingering chemical damage as the corrosive fluid eats away at armor and flesh. This dual effect makes the Bile Spitter particularly dangerous when combined with melee-focused Terminids, as it renders enemy targets vulnerable to follow-up assaults from larger, more aggressive members of the swarm. Beyond its offensive capabilities, the Bile Spitter exhibits a range of defensive behaviors that make it a challenging opponent despite its relatively low durability. Unlike its larger and more aggressive kin, it actively avoids melee combat whenever possible, utilizing its superior agility to reposition itself and find better angles of attack. It is capable of traversing rough terrain with ease, climbing over obstacles, and rapidly adjusting its position to maintain an optimal firing range. If cornered, the Bile Spitter may resort to suicidal tactics, triggering an explosive rupture of its bile sac upon death. This final act of aggression serves both as a last-ditch effort to inflict damage on enemy forces and as a strategic tool, further destabilizing enemy formations through area denial and disruption. Within the Terminid hierarchy, the Bile Spitter occupies a unique and essential role as a biological suppressor unit, functioning as artillery support for the swarm's frontline combatants. Unlike brood commanders, which assume leadership roles, or hive guards, which serve as elite defenders, the Bile Spitter operates as a frontline skirmisher, using its corrosive bile to soften up enemy ranks. It does not operate independently, but is instead guided by chemical signals from higher-ranking Terminids, reacting to pheromone-based directives that dictate whether it should attack, retreat, or reposition. These signals, most often issued by queens or brood commanders, allow the Bile Spitter to act as part of a coordinated assault rather than a disorganized lone hunter. Perhaps one of its most dangerous abilities is its function as a biological signal unit, capable of releasing special pheromones that summon reinforcements to the battlefield. When engaging enemy forces, the Bile Spitter can emit an airborne chemical signature that triggers a bug breach event, prompting additional Terminids to surface and reinforce the attack. This ability further enhances the swarm's overwhelming nature, allowing for continuous waves of Terminids to flood the battlefield and press the advantage. As a result, even a small number of Bile Spitters can escalate a minor skirmish into a full-scale battle, making their elimination a priority for Helldivers engaging Terminid forces. The Bile Spitter's life cycle follows a pattern of rapid development and evolutionary transition, reflecting the adaptive nature of the Terminid species. Hatching from deep underground nests, young Bile Spitters likely begin life as small, larval creatures, feeding on organic material within the hive to accelerate their growth. As they mature, they develop their signature bile production system, allowing them to take on their role as ranged attackers within the swarm. Unlike many other species, the Bile Spitter does not remain in this form indefinitely, but instead undergoes a dramatic metamorphosis, transitioning into the much larger and deadlier Bile Spewer. This transformation is triggered by a combination of environmental and hormonal factors, potentially dictated by population density, battlefield conditions, or pheromone signals from the queen. During this transition, the creature experiences significant physiological changes, including the expansion of its bile sac, an increase in bile projectile range, and the ability to fire multiple shots in rapid succession. This transformation effectively upgrades the Bile Spitter from a supporting unit to a full-fledged heavy artillery piece, demonstrating the terrifying scalability of Terminid evolution. The daily existence of the Bile Spitter is one of relentless combat and ceaseless adaptation, driven by an instinctual need to weaken enemy forces and pave the way for larger Terminids to secure victory. Its ability to coordinate with other swarm members, summon reinforcements, and transition into a more powerful form highlights the efficiency of the Terminid war machine, reinforcing the necessity for Helldivers to remain vigilant and adapt their strategies accordingly. Understanding the Bile Spitter's hunting techniques, swarm hierarchy, and evolutionary process is critical to devising effective countermeasures, as this creature represents more than just a simple biological weapon. It is a key component of an ever-evolving, ever-expanding alien menace. Though individually weak, the Bile Spitter serves as a crucial link in the swarm's ecosystem, ensuring that no battlefield remains safe from the relentless advance of the Terminid horde. The Bile Spitter, though small in size compared to other Terminid species, exhibits a remarkable range of survival strategies that allow it to thrive in hostile environments and contribute to the overwhelming power of the swarm. Unlike brute force attackers such as warriors or chargers, the Bile Spitter relies on adaptability, tactical positioning, and biochemical weaponry to secure its role in the war against humanity. Its ability to modify its behavior based on battlefield conditions, interact with other factions in complex ways, and utilize defense mechanisms makes it one of the most strategically significant members of the Terminid hierarchy. One of the key reasons for the Bile Spitter's success is its ability to adapt to changing environmental conditions. Unlike Terminids that rely purely on melee combat, the Bile Spitter's ranged attack grants it flexibility in various terrains, from open plains to dense urban ruins. This adaptability ensures that it remains effective across different planetary environments, whether in arid deserts, frozen wastelands, or dense jungles. The chemical composition of its bile may even change depending on environmental conditions, becoming more volatile in extreme heat or more adhesive in humid climates. These adaptive capabilities allow Bile Spitters to operate effectively in nearly any setting, ensuring their presence wherever the Terminid swarm expands. Beyond mere environmental adaptation, Bile Spitters also play a critical role in the swarm's interactions with other factions, particularly humans and cyborgs. Against Helldivers, they serve as harassers and disruptors, using their bile to slow and weaken enemy forces before melee-oriented Terminids deliver the killing blow. They can also function as biological artillery, launching volleys of bile from higher ground or behind cover, creating a hazardous battlefield that limits Helldiver mobility. When engaging cyborg forces, Bile Spitters are particularly effective due to the corrosive properties of their bile, which can dissolve metal plating and damage exposed machinery. Though cyborgs possess advanced armor, they are not immune to sustained acid exposure, and Bile Spitters contribute to softening their defenses before larger Terminids move in for the kill. However, perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Bile Spitters' interactions is its role within the Terminid hierarchy itself. Unlike solitary predators, Bile Spitters are inherently cooperative creatures, relying on swarm coordination to maximize their effectiveness. They often work alongside melee-focused Terminids, striking from a distance while warriors and brood commanders engage enemies in close combat. In some cases, Bile Spitters act as support units for larger bile spewers, providing additional ranged firepower, while the more advanced spewers unleash devastating barrages of bile. They also respond to chemical signals from higher-ranking Terminids, adjusting their behavior based on swarm needs. When a queen or brood commander signals an all-out attack, Bile Spitters shift from cautious harassment to aggressive bombardment, saturating enemy positions with acidic bile. Conversely, if the swarm begins to retreat, Bile Spitters may focus on delaying enemy pursuit, creating hazardous zones of bile to slow advancing Helldivers and give the larger Terminids time to withdraw. Defensively, Bile Spitters employ a variety of survival tactics to maximize their battlefield longevity. Unlike heavily armored Terminids, which rely on raw durability, Bile Spitters use agility and evasion to avoid damage. Their smaller size and lightweight exoskeleton allow them to move quickly, repositioning themselves whenever a threat is detected. They are capable of climbing over obstacles, navigating rough terrain, and even using subterranean tunnels to relocate when necessary. Some Bile Spitters have been observed using coordinated retreat tactics, falling back behind larger Terminids after delivering a few precise bile shots. This behavior suggests an instinctual understanding of battlefield positioning, ensuring that they remain effective for as long as possible rather than recklessly charging to their deaths. In situations where escape is impossible, the Bile Spitter possesses one final, deadly defense mechanism: its explosive bile sac. If fatally wounded, the creature's abdomen can rupture in a volatile chemical reaction, sending a spray of bile in all directions. This serves as both a last-ditch attack against its enemies and a means of denying its corpse as a tactical resource. Any Helldiver caught within the blast radius suffers immediate corrosive damage, while other Terminids remain largely unaffected due to their natural resistance to the bile. This suicidal defense ensures that even in death, the Bile Spitter continues to contribute to the swarm's success, making it one of the most insidious threats encountered on the battlefield. Ultimately, the Bile Spitter embodies the Terminid philosophy of relentless adaptation and overwhelming biological efficiency. It does not rely on brute strength like chargers, nor does it command troops like brood commanders. Instead, it serves as a tactical disruptor, using its ranged capabilities, cooperative instincts, and biochemical weaponry to destabilize enemy forces. Whether attacking Helldivers, corroding cyborg armor, or coordinating with other Terminids, the Bile Spitter remains a highly adaptable and indispensable part of the swarm. Understanding its survival strategies is essential for any Helldiver seeking to combat the ever-growing Terminid threat, as failure to recognize the Bile Spitter's role on the battlefield can quickly lead to an unwinnable fight against the relentless forces of the hive. The Bile Spitter may not be the most physically imposing Terminid, but underestimating it can be a fatal mistake. This creature plays a crucial role in Terminid combat strategy, serving as a disruptor that weakens and immobilizes Helldivers before larger, more powerful bugs close in for the kill. Its ranged bile attacks, ability to inflict movement penalties, and explosive death mechanism make it a persistent threat on the battlefield, especially when encountered in numbers or alongside other Terminids. One of the primary dangers posed by the Bile Spitter is its acidic projectile attack. Unlike melee-focused Terminids that must get within striking range, the Bile Spitter can attack from a distance, spitting corrosive bile at its targets. This bile is not only damaging over time, eating away at a Helldiver's armor and flesh, but also has a debilitating slowing effect. A Helldiver hit by bile will move sluggishly, making it far easier for warriors, chargers, or even more spitters to overwhelm them. The bile also lingers on impact, potentially affecting multiple Helldivers if they are standing too close together. This makes bile spitters especially dangerous in situations where mobility is key, such as during extraction sequences or when trying to evade incoming enemy swarms. In terms of attack patterns, bile spitters favor ambush tactics and harassment over direct engagement. They often remain at the edges of a battle, spitting bile while staying just out of melee range. When positioned behind other Terminids, they become difficult to target, forcing Helldivers to either waste time repositioning or risk fighting through an entire swarm just to eliminate them. In more open environments, bile spitters use their mobility to reposition frequently, ensuring that they maintain their effective range without getting too close to danger. Their ability to climb obstacles also makes them unpredictable, as they can suddenly appear from unexpected angles, spitting bile from elevated positions, or even dropping down onto unsuspecting Helldivers. Despite their effectiveness as ranged attackers, bile spitters have several notable weaknesses that can be exploited. Their health is relatively low compared to other Terminids, making them easy to kill with most weapons. Any well-placed shot to the body or head can quickly eliminate a single spitter before it becomes a serious threat. Additionally, their tendency to explode when their abdomen is hit can be used strategically. If timed correctly, a Helldiver can detonate a bile spitter while it is near other enemies, causing chain reactions that clear out multiple bugs at once. This makes explosive weapons, high-caliber firearms, and area-of-effect attacks particularly effective against them. Several weapons and tactics have proven to be highly effective in dealing with bile spitters. Precision weapons like the RS-422 railgun or the P-19 Redeemer can eliminate them before they have a chance to spit, ensuring that they are neutralized before they become a problem. Shotguns like the SG-225 Breaker are also effective at close range, as they can both kill spitters instantly and potentially trigger explosive chain reactions. Helldivers equipped with the AX/LAS-5 Guard Dog or the FLA-M40 Flamethrower can also deal with spitters efficiently, as these automated or sustained damage weapons prevent them from maintaining a safe distance. Beyond weapon choices, proper movement and positioning are critical in countering bile spitters. Since their bile projectiles are not instantaneous, skilled Helldivers can sidestep or dive to avoid being hit. This requires awareness of their presence and quick reflexes, but mastering this technique can minimize the risk of being slowed down and swarmed. Helldivers should also prioritize bile spitters when engaging enemy patrols, as eliminating them first prevents them from interfering with movement and combat effectiveness. A well-coordinated team can designate one Helldiver to focus on spitters, while others handle melee attackers, ensuring that the battlefield remains manageable. In in-game encounters, bile spitters are often found within mixed enemy groups, supporting warriors, bile spewers, and even larger enemies like chargers. Their ability to slow Helldivers makes them a dangerous force multiplier, as a single well-placed bile shot can make an otherwise routine fight far deadlier. When faced with multiple spitters at once, the danger escalates significantly. Helldivers caught in overlapping bile attacks can become nearly immobilized, making them easy prey for the rest of the swarm. This makes it essential to engage them quickly, using explosives or rapid-fire weapons to prevent them from gaining the upper hand. Overall, while the bile spitter is not the most resilient or individually dangerous enemy in the Terminid hierarchy, its unique abilities make it one of the most strategically significant threats. Helldivers who fail to account for them will find themselves slowed, weakened, and vulnerable to larger threats. By recognizing their attack patterns, prioritizing them in engagements, and using the right weapons and tactics, Helldivers can effectively neutralize bile spitters before they become a serious problem. However, complacency is never an option. Underestimating these creatures can quickly turn a manageable skirmish into a lethal ambush, proving once again that no Terminid, no matter how small, should ever be ignored. The bile spitter, while not the most imposing or physically dominant Terminid, plays a unique and critical role in the war against humanity. Unlike melee-focused Terminids that rely on brute force, the bile spitter is a specialized ranged attacker, using its corrosive bile to weaken, slow, and disorient Helldivers before other Terminids move in for the kill. Its ability to affect mobility and inflict lasting damage makes it a dangerous battlefield presence, especially in large numbers or when paired with fast-moving melee units. Though it has relatively low health and can be easily dispatched, its explosive death mechanic means that even in death, it can still pose a risk to nearby Helldivers. What sets the Bile Spitter apart from other Terminids is its adaptability as a support unit rather than a frontline combatant. While warriors, chargers, and brood commanders engage in direct melee combat, the Bile Spitter operates from a distance, softening up targets and disrupting Helldiver movement. This makes it similar to the Bile Spewer, its more mature and powerful counterpart, but with distinct differences. Unlike the Bile Spewer, which can unleash sustained streams of acid, the Bile Spitter uses quick projectile attacks and relies more on mobility. This makes it more unpredictable and, in some cases, even harder to counter, as it can quickly reposition and fire from unexpected angles. Comparing the Bile Spitter to other small Terminids, it is clear that it is far more dangerous than simple scavengers or hatchlings. While those smaller creatures rely on numbers and direct swarming tactics, the Bile Spitter disrupts enemy formations and forces Helldivers to react carefully rather than simply shooting in all directions. Looking toward the future, it is possible that new evolutionary strains of the Bile Spitter could emerge in later game updates. One potential variant could be an enhanced version that spits larger or multiple bile projectiles, increasing its ability to control an area. Another possibility is a more durable or armored version, making it harder to kill with a single shot. A particularly terrifying variant could be a stealth-based spitter that can camouflage itself before launching surprise attacks. There is also the potential for larger-scale mutations, where Bile Spitters evolve into something even more dangerous, perhaps a mid-sized Terminid that combines high mobility with even deadlier acid-based weaponry. The war against the Terminids is not only a battle for survival, but also a struggle for resources. Super Earth, in its relentless quest for energy independence and sustainability, has turned the very biology of its enemies against them. The fuel that powers Helldiver operations, the formidable fleet, and the industrial complex of humanity is derived from a substance extracted from Terminids. This organic fuel, known as E710, is an essential component of Super Earth's energy infrastructure, harvested directly from the bodies of Terminids and refined into a potent biofuel. This process is both a testament to humanity's ingenuity and a symbol of the never-ending war against the insectoid menace. While all Terminids contain trace amounts of the organic compounds necessary for E710 refinement, some species are particularly valuable in this regard. The largest and most biologically complex Terminids, such as the Bile Titan and Impaler, contain a significantly higher concentration of bioorganic matter that can be converted into fuel. These creatures, which function as the elite of the Terminid hierarchy, are often found patrolling alone, making them prime targets for strategic extermination missions. However, even smaller Terminids play a role in the production of E710. The Bile Spitter, though not as physically imposing as Titans or Chargers, is a particularly important source of Terminid-based fuel. The bile it secretes contains highly volatile compounds that, when processed, yield a refined energy source more potent than standard Terminid biomass. This has made the Bile Spitter a valuable target for Helldiver operations, not just because of its disruptive presence on the battlefield, but also because of its contribution to the war effort through fuel production. In a sense, every Bile Spitter exterminated brings Super Earth one step closer to securing its energy future. This method of fuel extraction is not without controversy. Some critics argue that reliance on Terminid-based energy prolongs the war, as Super Earth has a vested interest in maintaining an ongoing extermination campaign. Others question whether Terminids could eventually develop resistance to the methods used to harvest them, potentially leading to bioadaptive countermeasures that make them more resilient. However, as it stands, the E710 fuel industry remains one of the most crucial aspects of humanity's fight against the Terminid threat. Beyond simple energy production, this process also serves a greater purpose. It ensures that every engagement with the Terminids is not just a battle for territory, but also a strategic resource operation. Every Helldiver deployment is not just about eliminating threats, but also about gathering the raw materials necessary to power the next wave of offensives. The war machine of Super Earth is fueled by the very bodies of its enemies, a poetic and brutal cycle of destruction and utilization. The Terminids themselves likely have no understanding of their role in humanity's energy economy. Their crude, fascistic hierarchy, dictated by genetic composition and pheromonal control, gives them no concept of industry or sustainability. While certain Terminids, such as the Brood Commanders and Alpha Commanders, can issue rudimentary orders to lesser bugs, this control is often fragile. When faced with Helldivers, their structured formations break down into mindless aggression, ensuring that their biomass is easily harvested in the aftermath of battle. In the grand scheme of the war, the reliance on Terminid-based fuel represents both a strategic advantage and a potential vulnerability. While it allows Super Earth to sustain its military-industrial complex without dependence on traditional fossil fuels, it also ties humanity's energy supply directly to the continued extermination of the Terminids. Should the bugs evolve in a way that disrupts the harvesting process, whether through biological adaptation or strategic countermeasures, the consequences could be dire. For now, however, the Helldivers march forward, knowing that every bug they kill not only secures victory on the battlefield, but also fuels the next assault. The Bile Spitter, despite its relatively weak stature, is just another cog in this vast, ruthless machine of war, one that will continue turning until every last Terminid is purged from existence. In conclusion, the Bile Spitter is a deceptively dangerous enemy that should never be underestimated. While it may not be as heavily armored or physically powerful as other Terminids, its ability to weaken and slow Helldivers makes it a crucial piece in the Terminid war machine. Its role as a ranged disruptor makes it one of the most tactically significant threats on the battlefield, and any Helldiver squad that fails to prioritize it will quickly find themselves in a dire situation. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the Bile Spitter and want to see more in-depth analyses of other Terminids, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. What do you think about the Bile Spitter? Have you encountered particularly challenging fights involving them? Do you have any personal strategies for dealing with them effectively? Let us know in the comments below. Your feedback helps shape future content, and together, we can continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Helldivers. Super Earth depends on us. Let's keep fighting for democracy.